Finally, we have another Marvel MCU movie. Don't get me wrong, I really enjoyed the small screen stuff with WandaVision, Falcon and the Winter Soldier, and now currently enjoying Loki as well. But come on, for Marvel MCU, the big screen is where it's at, and the Avengers movies are what really sells the tickets. And now we finally have a Black Widow movie. Black Widow, I've enjoyed her character ever since she made her premiere. I think it was in Iron Man 2. I think Scarlett Johansson has done a fantastic job in portraying the character. I just wasn't really a fan of how she's been used to date. Because nothing against Scarlett Johansson or anything like that, but Black Widow is not superhuman. She's just a human with very, very high level skills. And yet they pit her in these global galaxy driven wars against gods, against titans, against aliens, and I just don't see much use of where her two guns going pew 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 against all these powerful forces, how that's gonna do anything. So I never really saw a point to having her included in these movies. So I'm so glad that Black Widow was able to kind of ground the story and bring her back to where her strengths really are. The movie starts off in small town USA. Black Widow is a young girl with a younger sister and two appearingly traditional American parents, and then all that goes to shit and they have to run and hide, and then she's recruited into this Red Room, which is run by this villain named Dreykov, who happens to train all these young women for some reason, and turn them into super spies. And his plan is to plant these widows all across the globe and just start some shit. Overall, I was glad that they brought that story down to a more human level so that, her skills could be better utilized and better believed. And yet the overall story, I just didn't quite get the point of it. I know you can't really move forward in her timeline because of what happened to her in Avengers Endgame, obviously, but I thought that given her very colorful past, they could have picked any amount or created any story for her that would have been more interesting than this. Not everything has to be an origin story, and I feel like this is what this kind of was for her, like how she became the Black Widow and how the Black Widow, society in general came to be. I just didn't find it all that interesting, to be honest. But, this movie's not great, but it's not bad either. I think the cast did a really good job in elevating the material. Black Widow's younger sister, is played by Florence Pugh, and I'll be honest, not a fan, never have been until now. I saw Florence Pugh in Midsummer, I saw her in Little Women. Hated her actually in both films, to be honest. I didn't care for her at all. I thought she was very overrated, just didn't quite see what all the hoopla was about with her. But that's changed now. Now having seen her in Black Widow and her performance as Yelena, her Black Widow's younger sister, I thought she was great in the movie. She was funny. She did the action scenes well. She really pulled the character off. So if there are future plans for her character in the MCU, hey, I'm all for it. I think she did a great job in this one. So kudos to Florence Pugh for changing my mind. And now I can say that I actually enjoy her performance. The rest of the supporting cast, you have David Harbour from Stranger Things, who really chews up the scenery as the what was his character? Red Guardian, the Russian equivalent, if you will, of Captain America. Rachel Weisz is also in it. Not that much to do, but she just kind of has that presence that she brings to the screen, which is really helpful. The villain, Dreykov, I think his name was. Not really much of a presence, the main villain anyway, and he doesn't really even show up to the third act, basically. So you don't even know who this guy is until they finally bring him in, and you're like, yeah, so what? And he's very James Bond-ish, James Bond villain-ish, I should say. He just comes in and gives his whole exposition about what he's doing and why he's doing it. Who cares? So yeah, not a fan of the main villain Dreykov. And then they have the secondary villain, Taskmaster, who also I was a great fan of in the comic books. Taskmaster is a guy who can mimic the abilities or the moves of anyone he watches. So, like, for example, if you were to fight Bruce Lee in a real fight, then he could do a Bruce Lee spinning kick or whatever, exactly the same. And that's an awesome power or ability to have. So Taskmaster was a great villain in the comic books, because anything you could do, he could counter you with. And I was really looking forward to the introduction of his character in this movie. And what they did with him, I see what they were going for. Again, I just didn't see the point of why they did it, and I thought they kind of messed that up a little bit. If they had given Taskmaster more of a character, more depth as a character, I think that would have gone a lot better, and even had the potential to bring him back for future films. But the way they treated his character in this film, I just don't see that happening, and I just didn't really care for it. So yeah, the villains in this movie were not the greatest. Overall, I would say this movie is pretty tame, pretty vanilla. It's not too inspiring, not too ambitious. It's like they really wanted to stick to the Marvel formula and not take any risks. And that's kind of what I felt watching this movie. Everything just felt very neutral, vanilla, tempered. And again, not to say it's a bad film, it's just not that exciting either. The action scenes, they're passable. I actually did enjoy most of them. Even the third act, where it's like primarily this whole CGI green screen type of scene, I still found it to be pretty thrilling, so I enjoyed it. But you know, and I really love the music. The score to this movie is great. It's not all the time where you actually notice the music in the background, but this time I did, and in the good way, so that was fun to listen to as well. And it was a great compliment to the story and the action lines going on. I enjoyed the banter between Scarlett Johansson and Florence Pugh's characters as these sisters who are just kind of getting to know each other once again. That being said, the introductory scene, which is in all the trailers, about where they're fighting each other, that just absolutely made no sense. Yeah, it made no sense to me. I think that was just there just so that they could have a fight scene together, but it really made no sense as to why they did. But anyway, but yeah, so again, this film has many flaws, but yet, you know, it's not terrible, and again, it's just passable. So I had a decent enough time with Black Widow. I don't think it's gonna be one that I'll watch over and over again. And there's like maybe half the Marvel movies I've only seen once. I think this is gonna go in that bucket of Marvel films for me. I just don't see myself watching this movie again. And yet, you know, I think it was passable enough to watch for one time. So for me, Black Widow gets a 6 out of 10. Thanks so much for watching my review. If you like it, please give me a thumbs up. And if you haven't done so already, please subscribe to my channel, MC on Film, for more reviews in the future.